Hi everyone,
Hi.
welcome back to our Eco Travel Chat. We are Caleb and Linda from Bamboo and Backpacks.
So this week we spoke to Sam and Ashley from Green Shoestring Travel. They're a couple from Colorado who are now living and teaching English in China. So we hear about all their experience as well as how they have to overcome some challenges when it comes to eco-living in China. They tell us some of their cool slow travel experiences in Lombok, Indonesia, and also if you're just starting out on your eco lifestyle journey, then they give some really great advice for anyone who is in that position right now. So let's listen to what they have to say. So, do you want to just start off by introducing yourselves and telling us a bit about Green Shoestring Travel?
Yeah, definitely. I'll go first. So, hey everybody, my name is Ashley, and you guys obviously recognize us from the Green Shoestring. My boyfriend and I, Sam, we've been living in China for the last 4 years, and about 2.5 of those years we've been keeping our blog, The Green Shoestring, which is all about what we love most, which is traveling sustainably and responsibly.
Yeah, we left America 4 years ago. Neither of us had really traveled. We wanted an opportunity to see the world, to travel, and so that led us to teach English in China. And as we were teaching English and having these opportunities to travel, it really opened our eyes to some of the problems that are surrounding the tourism industry as it exists today. And we knew that for us, if we were going to continue traveling, we had to start thinking more about how we could be more sustainable, more mindful towards our travel. And we realized that there weren't a ton of people out there who were thinking about these things as they were traveling. So we kind of made it our mission to try to learn more about what it means to travel sustainably, to travel ethically, and to try to share what we learn with other people through our blog, The Green Shoestring.
And this is Sam. the other half.
Awesome. Yeah, that's an amazing intro, guys.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you said, Sam, that you noticed at the beginning that there weren't that many people thinking about traveling or their impact about how they were traveling. Do you notice a change since then or not really?
I would say absolutely. I'm sure that a lot of this is also, as we've gone down this road, we've met, and we now have kind of a whole community of people, just like you guys, Linda and Caleb, who are also very passionate about the same thing. So a lot of that may be from blogging, but I also think that general commercial tourism is also headed towards a more sustainable path. And I think that's fantastic. The average tourism consumer is definitely more aware of all things green now, I think. But awareness and action are two very different things, as you guys know. So that's kind of the next step for us, is trying to get people from thinking about it to actually doing it.
Yeah, and I think just even over the last 4 years, awareness towards global warming and climate change has increased dramatically. Even from our parents' generation down to to kids today, I think the signs of the negative effects of climate change are becoming more and more and more obvious. And so I think as a whole, people are starting to understand, okay, a lot of this is from human behavior. I play some role in that, and so when I go and travel, I need to, think about what my impact's going to be.
And what are some of the things that you changed kind of in your lifestyle or in the way that you travel when you first started noticing that you wanted to travel in a more sustainable or slow way?
I think the first thing that we became aware of was our plastic consumption while we were traveling. When we first started, you go to a restaurant, you get a drink, it comes with a plastic straw, it comes in a plastic cup. If you were to get street food, it would come in a styrofoam container or a plastic container. And that was a lot of plastic waste that we felt like we could easily cut out from our lifestyle at home and when we're traveling. So we've started to pack essential items with us that allow us to avoid using single-use plastic, be it things like a water bottle and a water purifier to reusable food containers, beeswax food wraps, bamboo
All
straws.
that good stuff.
We kind of travel with our own little, I guess, zero waste kit, I guess you could say, that has really helped us eliminate almost all the single-use plastic that we use while we travel.
Yeah, and I would also say that, this whole journey has allowed us, or, forced us to change everything that we do. Not just carrying plastic things, but, for example, right now we are back home in America and we're traveling. We've been here all summer and we're kind of driving throughout America. So knowing that there is a footprint from just how many miles we're traveling, we've been tracking all of our miles, and we'll be paying, a carbon tax to offset all of the traveling we've been doing here. That's something that is currently not as popular as we wish it was. But it's also something that I think every traveler should be doing, whether or not they're traveling for pleasure or they're traveling for business, as my mother does all the time. So yeah, I'm kind of trying to get my mom. I'm like, Mom, hey, you should calculate those miles, pay carbon tax. And she's like, oh yeah, honey, okay. So to be fair, my parents are actually very progressive with all of that. So I'm sure if I keep banging on her, she'll get there.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think it's really important to share these things with our families and our friends, and like you say, everyone should be doing these kind of things, and it's just a case of awareness and making it more of a habit. So with time, I think we'll get there for sure.
Yeah, and the
definitely.
awareness goes beyond, the things that you can see, like with simple cause and effect, like plastic pollution and waste and all of these things, or carbon and high CO2 levels. There's also responsible consumerism, staying local places, making sure that your dollars are being put back into the local community that's hosting your amazing trip. I think that's also so important. So just keeping it local and keeping it great.
I think we've become a lot more mindful about like where and how we choose to travel. I think before, when we started, we'd say, okay, we want to go to Thailand. All right, let's get on Hostel World. Let's find the cheapest hostel.
Yeah.
Let's go to Thailand. Now we're a lot more mindful with where we choose. We do our research. We try to find places that, as Ashley said, are local. We know the money's going back into the local economy. And then furthermore, trying to find places that share the same beliefs about how we can, take better care of the planet. We try to find, in Lombok, we stayed at places with like a compost toilet, places that collect rainwater, and things like that, to try to support those kind of businesses. And hopefully over time, the more and more us as a traveling community demand these things, the more that it will be financially profitable for these businesses in other countries to adopt these sustainable practices.
Absolutely. And actually, can you tell us a bit more about that eco project in Lombok? It was a collaboration with Track Travel, is that right? It was all about eco and slow travel?
Yeah, definitely. So for Chinese New Year this year, which is generally about a month long, we partnered up with Track, and we went out and took one of their slow travel plans for a spin, which is essentially a plan made by Track. And what they do is they do an intake call with you and kind of figure out what kinds of activities you like, what sort of places you gravitate to, what kind of connections you want to make, that sort of thing. And then they make you your own personalized travel plan for the location that you're going to. So we love Lombok, and we've been kind of stalking their Instagram with all of the great things that they have to offer on Lombok. So that's where we chose to do it. And one of the places was called Eco Domes on Lombok, and they are exactly as they sound. They are these kind of earth bag domes, and they have been doing a lot of stuff for some of the local community up in northern Lombok that was affected by the earthquakes in, I think that was 2017 now, and trying to show them how to make these sort of low-cost, sustainably built domes that are actually earthquake-proof as well. So, Indonesia is in the Ring of Fire. There's lots of earthquakes happening there.
Yeah.
So rather than, taking the money that the government was offering them to rebuild a very basic brick house, not very earthquake proof. So they decided to try to use that money to build a cheaper, more sustainable option, and one that is kind of a little bit more resistant to earthquake damage as well. So we got to go and check that out and stay in their domes. Some of them are still in the construction process, but it was really, really cool.
Yeah, and they have big plans for a whole environmentally friendly kind of eco resort once it's done. Like, they bought a plot of land nearby where the eco domes are being built, and their plan is to turn that into a food forest.
Yeah.
They're working with a couple of guys from Brazil to turn this area into a food forest, to then hopefully supply all of the fruits and vegetables for their resort restaurant directly from their food forest. They have all of their eco domes have an irrigation system so that when you use water from the sink, the water runs down and then it runs into a surrounding garden that grows like shade plants and things like that. On top of the eco dome, they had a passion fruit vine growing. So their whole thing was encapsulating just being as low impact as possible with their building materials, how they source their food, what they do with their waste. They're really taking a circular approach to having a luxury eco resort.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Really utopic.
Yeah, definitely. Really inspirational, and probably also an inspiration for you guys, because you mentioned, I think, in one of your recent Instagram posts that you have like a future dream for like an eco homestay. So maybe that was also some inspiration for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
That was kind of one of the most amazing things about our our slow travel plan from GemTrack was that, they kind of they knew that this was something that we want to do eventually, and they kind of put us in touch and built a connection with various people in the different puzzles upon which our eco stay, upon which we'd like to have our eco stay. So here's the architecture, here's this place and how they're sourcing their food, here's place and how they're outsourcing some of their like local tours, all these kinds of things. So it was great. It was a great learning experience, but it was also just a really, really great trip.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And like another really cool part about the slow travel plans is that every place you go, there's some sort of focus on community. Everywhere we stayed, there was some sort of special community aspect involved. Like, we stayed at this one place called Fabulous Place, and the manager of Fabulous Place has taken it upon herself to build a library in one of the local villages. She teaches English classes in one of the local villages, and she's also working with these master sarong weavers who are all very talented but getting a little old, and she's working with them to try to preserve this ancient
art.
weaving technique of making these very special sarongs in Indonesia. And so I think that's something else to consider with sustainable travel. The environment is part of it, but also the community, the culture, and the people is the other half of that coin. And so that's something we always try to take into consideration when we travel, is how can we connect with the local community, and how can we make sure that our time, wherever we are, ends up being a positive for both us and for the people who we're interacting with.
And so we've probably covered a lot of the points already, but just like to summarize, what do you think are some of your top tips for someone who is thinking about starting on their journey of sustainable travel and they're looking for some advice or inspiration on how to go about it, how to start?
Definitely. I think that the first and most important thing is just try to change one small thing at a time. I think sometimes it can be overwhelming when, someone's like, well, you've got plastic and, you're doing this and this and this and this. Maybe that's not how the other person is saying it, but sometimes that can be how it feels. And I know when we first started, like, we were living in China, which is the most which is the most like plastic friendly place ever.
Yeah.
They really love it over there. So we were just like, there's no way we can do this. And I think I got pretty frustrated, feeling like what I was doing wasn't making an impact. And I think that's a really, really negative mindset to get into. So just remember that every little thing that you do really does make an impact, even if you can't see it. And I think kind of remembering that it makes it a bit more encouraging, and then you're able to take on more things. Start with one thing and remember that it's okay to make mistakes. We are not perfect by any means. So just kind of remembering that.
Yeah. And kind of along the lines of what Ashley's saying, I would say don't get discouraged if say you look on Instagram and you see people projecting this zero waste, plastic free, eco life that you don't feel like you have. Because like she said, you should celebrate every little success, every little step, every little time you use your travel silverware kit instead of a plastic spoon. Like, that's something worth celebrating. And my advice would be that if someone tries to disparage you for that, if someone tries to tell you that you're not doing good enough, then I don't think that they're really have your best interests in mind. And I think any little small thing that you can do to help the planet is something that we should all celebrate.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the process. You start with small steps and you work your way up. You start with not using a straw, and then you work your way up to paying a carbon tax, or to not flying at all, which is something we're trying to get to, but like we still have to fly.
Yeah.
So like Ashley said, we're not perfect. So I would say take it one step at a time. The first thing you can do before you even leave your house is just to think about your trip. Think about, okay, where am I going? What do I need to bring? What kind of waste might I be creating? What kind of activities do I want to do? So that you can think about what your impact's going to be for each step and try to do the things you can. So basically just think about what you're going to do ahead of time so that you can anticipate maybe situations where you'll create waste, opportunities where maybe I can, instead of flying from point A to point B, maybe I can take a train from point A to point B. That alone will significantly reduce your emissions when you travel.
And I think on that note too, just research. Google is your best friend.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more you plan. Yeah.
Another surprisingly good resource is Facebook.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of Facebook groups, travel groups, sustainable travel groups,
absolutely,
backpacking groups. There's tons of networks on Facebook where you can get information, first person point of view information that you can't always find on Google. There's a Facebook group called the Journey to Zero Waste. Which has a lot of people who are, they're on some sort of part of the path towards, living a zero waste lifestyle. So you get lots of good tips on products you can use instead of plastic, or tips to eliminate plastic from your life. It doesn't always apply specifically to travel, but just to living a sustainable lifestyle in general. I've gotten a lot of good information, had good conversations on everything from composting to, stasher bags, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of good information on that group. I think at the end of the day, the reason people want to travel to these places is because they go and they're beautiful, they're exotic, there's culture, there's history, there's whatever. And I think more and more people are understanding that if we don't, as a community, start to take better care of these places, then they're not going to be around for us to enjoy years down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that in China, you said it's like the most plastic friendly place. Whilst you're living there, like how do you overcome that? Like what kind of things do you do to try to keep being as sustainable as you can?
Oh, well, so many things. We generally don't eat out. We, you know, it's amazing in China. You could get any food delivered at any time, except for, of course, Western food. But it all comes in plastic. So we try to follow our rule. No ordering food online. We cook all of our meals from home. We are vegetarians, so a lot of like meat packaging is all plastics. So that cuts that out. We bring our own produce bags to the market or the store with us. We minimize online purchases, which is really hard in China because everything is so cheap. So yeah, we really try not to order things off of like Taobao and Ele.me and some of these Chinese shopping apps.
Yeah,
we bike. Sam bikes to work every day.
So with some things we've had to get a little creative.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to go to 3 different grocery stores in order to get all of the like fruit, vegetables, and nuts, things like that, that aren't wrapped in plastic. Like there's one grocery store where you can buy like almonds and cashews in bulk. Okay, so we go there for that. There's one grocery store where they have some fruit that's not wrapped in plastic, but the vegetables are wrapped in plastic. So we get the fruit there. And then this one, you can get vegetables not wrapped in plastic. So we get our vegetables there. So sometimes we've had to get a bit creative because China doesn't make it easy.
No.
Almost all produce even is wrapped in plastic.
Drives me crazy.
You buy one cucumber, but that individual cucumber is wrapped in plastic.
Saran wrap.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes. But like we talked about earlier, we just try to do the best we can. When at our apartment in China, we have a compost bin, so we compost all of our food scraps. Ashley started to brew her own kombucha.
Yep, I brew.
Cool.
Yes, brewing kombucha there. I think another thing with it as well is, in China, and this is obviously a bit easier when you're just actually living somewhere and you're not, bouncing around and being 100% nomadic. But finding a way to like reuse everything. Because there are times that, we do accumulate plastic, like yogurt. We don't have a zero waste store that we can just pop down with our little jar and get some yogurt. If I want yogurt, I gotta buy it, and it's in plastic. So finding different ways to reuse those containers. I think there's a misconception right now that a plastic-free lifestyle is this cookie cutter pantry with all of these beautiful labeled jars and they're all alphabetical and all of these things. Maybe that's the 5%, but the other 95, it's ugly. Like our pantry doesn't look good. It's like mismatched everything and like how old is that Ziploc baggie? I don't know. I'm not gonna ask, sort of thing. Yeah. So I think that's also just that's something that we as a brand want to be a bit more transparent about moving forward. Is just kind of showing our followers that like this is what we think it really looks like. This is what it looks like from our perspective. It's not as cosmetically pleasing. It doesn't gram as well. But just kind of showing people this is how we're making things work on our end. And this is on that note, kind of, with us just being in China for most of the time, like we are not traveling full time. We travel a lot more than we ever would have if we were still in America. But, we're not exclusively nomadic. We're not exclusively on the road right now. So trying to like be a bit more transparent with some of those things so that people can hopefully do it for themselves. That's really the ultimate goal.
And I wanted to ask you also, do you feel like you can have this kind of conversations with people in China about why you choose to try to find plastic-free options, for example?
That's a really, really great question, actually. I'm really glad that you asked that. For a while, the answer was no. We didn't really think that we could have that conversation with people. A, because there's a language barrier. Yeah. But B, they just weren't really aware of it. And if they aren't aware of it, they can't really understand it. And so we just look like crazy people.
Yeah.
But that's changing a lot. I would say probably 4 or 5 months ago, a friend who's a business owner in China, he's from California, had asked me to come and join him for sort of like a vegetarian dinner thing. Didn't really know what to expect, and I showed up, and it ended up being like a room full of people who really wanted to know about our plastic-free life. So yes, and and I got to show them all of my. Luckily, I had all of my stuff with me, so I got to show them all of this is what I use when I'm going to this store, and I was able to. Because they were there and I had everything with me, and they were Chinese and they were from Fuzhou and all of these things, it was just kind of like the perfect recipe to get them to see how possible it is, how easy it is in some cases to do this, and to kind of like combat that with, hey, so this river, you guys know this river, this is our backyard, like it's full of trash. What can we do better? And sort of help them draw that line. So that was really great. There's also an amazing sort of zero waste movement happening in Shanghai right now. There's a WeChat group that we are in. WeChat is kind of the messaging app that they use in China. There's a WeChat group called Zero Waste Shanghai, and right now the max is 500 members, but I think they've had to make a few more because there are just so many people who are on board. And that is an incredible resource for us. We get connected with vendors who will ship in China plastic free. That's huge. People who will send us bulk things like, bulk shea butter if I want to make some moisturizer or things like that. So that's been a wealth of information for us as well. Yeah. And there are lots of Chinese people in the group. It's not just foreigners. So that's really, really exciting to see.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's amazing. Yeah.
So
there is hope after all.
Yeah, thanks for your time, for your positive thought about all this topic. It's really inspiring to listen to you, hear how much you are doing. Is really, really amazing.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for asking us to come on. And
I think at the end of the day, taking a positive approach is the best way. Because if you come at someone with just negative, like, the planet's gonna die and it's your fault and you have to do this, and if you don't do this, like, it's hard to inspire people to act when you take that style of messaging. So we like we said, we want to keep it positive because we think that there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of reason to be hopeful that things can change.
Yeah.
Great, so that was our video with Sam and Ashley from Green Shoestring Travel. Don't forget to follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Green Shoestring Travel to follow all of their adventures around the world.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you, Sam and Ashley, for getting up so early for this interview. Yes. And if you like this channel, please subscribe, leave a comment if you want some specific questions for us to make for the next interviews. And see you next week.
Great, see you next time.